This is a fabulous question. So North CR7 XT asks, do you think the expense of camping equipment is creating a barrier of entry for new people getting into the hobby? Wild camping doesn't have to be an expensive hobby. I think people, including myself, we get sucked into all of the marketing and the hype and what you see on YouTube. You've got to bear in mind that I'm a YouTube viewer as well. And I see these things and I think, oh, I need that. I want this, I want that. At the moment, I want a Brompton bike, which is about 1,500 quid, but that's another story. But I walked up yesterday and the first tent I saw was, I don't know what it was. I've never seen one before. It was definitely a low-end tent. And there were 3 people there that were having a great time. And they were camping. And the stove that they brought, the ones that you get from like Home Bargains, the big square things that you lift the lid up, they're about a tenner. So they were wild camping purely on a budget. And when I started wild camping, I bought army surplus gear. And then when you get to like the hobby, or you know that it's for you, you start investing in a little bit more. But that's the same with anything. Cyclists will do exactly the same. They'll start off with, a cheap push iron, and then as they get more and more into the hobby, they start, buying more and more expensive gear because it gives them a little bit more of a comfortable experience sometimes. It's lighter on your back when you want to carry it. You don't have to spend huge amounts of money. Although I don't recommend, personally, I wouldn't want to be up here in a £15 Tesco tent, but if the conditions are right, like last night, weather was perfect. Hardly any wind at all. There was no rain. I could have camped up here in one of those festival £20 pop-up tents. But, there's potential for the weather to change at any time up here. And if you're in one of those tents and the weather changes, you could be in a lot of trouble. Yes, camping gear is expensive, and some of it, I don't see why it's so expensive. So, I don't know what this pot is. It's probably about £70 for a little titanium pot. Now, you don't need that. You can bring your kitchen pan if you want. It's a little bit heavier, a little bit bulkier, but as long as you're prepared to carry it, then that's perfectly fine. The first, you can see the place from here. Let me show you. Not the first, I'm going to say it was a woodland camp. I was in a hammock, and I'd been doing woodland bushcraft camping before. But that little woodland down there is where I did my first, I'm going to say, bushcraft wild camp. I had a 100-litre Bergen on my back. I think it was 100-litre. What was it? It was Berghaus, Cyclops, something. I think it was that. I had pots, pans hanging off the side. I looked like a hobo or something like that. A one-man band. And I really struggled getting up the hill. I was knackered carrying all that stuff. But I loved it. But I knew at that moment that I needed to lighten the load a little bit. So I started looking at lighter weight options. And also there were things in the bag that I didn't need. But when you're first starting out, you don't know that. So sometimes you have to take the kitchen sink with you to realise that you don't need it. I wouldn't want to be carrying 120 litres up here anyway. So a quick look on the Black's website, and you can currently get a Eurohike Nepal 65 litre rucksack, 1.38 kilos, plenty of storage, padded harness, all you need really for starting off backpacking. You've even got a choice of 3 colours. It'll do a fine job if you're just starting out, and 19 quid is a bargain. So yeah, there's plenty of budget options out there. I think Daily Outdoors has done a video this week, full setup for £100. I haven't watched it yet, but go check that out. There's lots of people doing budget stuff. I'm fortunate now that I'm in a position where I've got some good quality kit. It is expensive kit, but you don't need all of this. You don't need the Thermarest sleeping quilt, which is probably about 300 quid, something like that. You can get away with, well, you can buy decent stuff. A down bag from Outkit sometimes £150. The Sky Highs, really good bag. I've still got the first one, that first down bag I bought, and it's brilliant. It's just a little bit bulkier than that. Downfill bags tend to be a little bit more expensive, so you might want to check out something with a synthetic insulation. Places like Go Outdoors and Decathlon have a good selection, or you can usually pick up a snug pack bag from the Travel Pack range for around £30–40. You don't need the fancy stoves or the fancy sleeping pads. You can have just a closed cell foam mat. I can't remember the price, but I bet it's £20 for a lighter. A lighter. Because I felt at the time, I saw it, I wanted it, I needed it, and it is great. But I've got a little big lighter as well, which is £1, which also works great. The reality is, it's not expensive gear that is stopping you from getting into wild camping. You need to cut your cloth accordingly, buy gear that's suitable for you, that you can afford, and that is just up to the job of the conditions that you're in. So if you're going on a Arctic expedition or something like that, you don't even want that tent. You want something that is capable for those conditions. But if you're up here, in conditions that we've had over the last 24 hours, then you don't need that either. You could have something that is, well, the OEX Bobcat. I bought one last year, £59, and it would do exactly the same thing as this and wouldn't budge. So you can spend big bucks on a tent if you want to, but during the hiking yesterday, I bumped into Ben, who was out with his two lads for the first time, and one of them were camping in the OEX Fox 1. That's only £59 at the moment. Admittedly, it's not got a lot of space inside, but it's a really robust tent, and it only weighs in at 1.58 kilos. I know loads of people who have started out with one of these tents, and they're really good value for money. It's not just backpacks and tents. You can do this with all your camping items, stoves, sleeping pads. You've just got to shop around, and there are bargains to be had. I know £59 to some people might still seem expensive, but if you want to take up golf, or you want to go and start caravanning, or cycling, or archery, even playing tennis, I bet you can pay hundreds of pounds for a tennis racket. So it's all relative. It's not just the camping niche that's expensive, it's every hobby. As soon as you get a hobby, it starts costing you money.